After a thrilling start to a new season in Nashville, the top drivers in the Bootleg Racing League are set for a new challenge tonight. For the first time, its Grand National Series is ready to fire their engines at the world's fastest half-mile tri-oval. Who will take home the big checkered flag tonight? We're about to find out on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Concord Speedway for the second race of Season 7 for the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series, presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Devin Henry. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. It's one of the oldest tracks in all of iRacing, and it's one that brings some interesting storylines. Let's take a look at our GSRC track guide to learn more about Concord.
Concord was a very unique facility, a sort of mini Pocono featuring 3 turns at different radiuses. Short track racers from across the southeastern United States would come here in search of conquering that challenge, a place where the likes of Dale Jr. cut his teeth and also hosted the likes of Jack Sprague, Ernie Irvin, and Bobby Labonte. Turn 1 is the widest turn. At 14 degrees of banking, it'll be the fastest corner on the track. You'll carry a lot of speed down the short chute and into turn 2, which is banked at 11 degrees. You'll see a lot of guys who make this as straight as possible, and you probably won't get a lot of passing done here. But you fly down the backstretch and into turn 3, and while turn 3 is also banked at 14 degrees, it's narrower and has a tighter radius. That inside pit wall almost gives it a claustrophobic feeling. All that while dealing with the fact that this is the best passing on the track. But you need that good run to the outside wall to have a great run to the start-finish line. Concord hosted all the short track cars. Weekly street stocks often stole the show. Late models were also known for setting quick track times here. And super late models held numerous special events with several organizers. But as modified's popularity increased in the Southeast, their appearances increased at Concord, and many of its marquee events in its later years were tour mods. Concord was sold and shut down in 2019, and while it's turning into a salvage yard, the track surface and grandstands are still intact, giving hope that racing may one day return to the world's fastest half-mile tri-oval.
That's a look at your GSRC track guide for Concord Speedway. Now, Devin, tonight's going to bring some interesting challenges as a result here. This is a track that, while it's no longer in operation in the real world, is one that is very unique for the sim racing world because of its triangle shape.
Goodness gracious, it is just a shame that this track is no longer in operation. I would love to go see this in the real world because it is a blast to drive here in iRacing. Some of you Legends Cars guys might have driven this many times in those much smaller, less horsepower, tiny little machines, and we are bringing these big, heavy stock cars to Concord, a track that's basically 10 degrees banking all the way around, 8 degrees on the front straight, 14 degrees in turn 1, 10 degrees on the dogleg, 11 degrees on the back straightaway, and 14 degrees in turn 3. It is the oddest shaping bowl that you've probably ever seen. And this half mile has a lot of nice little nifty tricks to it, a very difficult entry into turn number 1. And when you're coming off of turn number 2, the way you kind of get that last little stretch of straightaway there, when you're coming off that dog leg, it feels like the track gets thin very quickly as you head up towards the wall. A very fun track, a blast to drive, but plenty of difficulties to find your way around if you want to wind up in victory lane tonight.
It's going to be interesting to see which drivers coming on top here tonight. But before we continue, I'd like to remind you of the title sponsor for the BRL's Grand National Series, Gargamel's Kitchen. Gargamel's Kitchen is a food-grade nitrous oxide provider located in Denver, Colorado, and a proud sponsor of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series. Visit their office at 2045 South Valencia Street or give them a call at 720-707-6178. As these drivers continue to make their way around the racetrack, let's take a look at the standings after the first round of the season at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. It was Justin Morton who took home the checker flag. Matthew Thunhorst, J.R. Shepard, James Lowe, Austin Balke rounded out the top 5, and all those drivers separated by 1 point apiece After the opening race of the campaign, 40 points going to the race winner in Morden, 39 to Thunderhorse, 38 to Shepherd, and so forth down the pylon. The top 10, all 31 points or above as a result of that result, and the point structure for this respective series. But the interesting thing as well is going to be how these drivers handled tonight, especially as we head towards our race details, as it's going to be important, that grid inversion here for this evening for these details.
Absolutely. Race number 2 of this season, 100 laps here at Concord. And most importantly, there are no tire changes, and there are 3 very demanding corners that these drivers have to navigate. You have to find a way to keep those, specifically the right front, just really kind of calm throughout 3 very demanding corners. Only one faster pair of difficulties do find you. But like you said, Justin, the grid inversion, the top 8 from last week, they get inverted. Basically, wherever you finished last week is where you start this week, except that top 8 gets inverted. That causes the leaders last 2 weeks ago, I guess it is now, to be about the middle of the pack, depending on who shows up here tonight.
And that's going to be very critical indeed, because some of the drivers in some of the error classes throughout the night had the major difficulty of trying to make moves without physical contact here for this track. By the way, J.R. Shepherd is at the top of the board with a 16.593 in practice. Brian Dean, Donnie Moore, Justin Morton, Matthew Thunhorst, your top 5 of the board. And it's a hot one. As you can tell with how slick it is for some of these drivers on the exits, 115 degrees Fahrenheit is your track temp at the moment.
Woo, running on lava right now, and you can see, like you said, Justin, they're slipping, they're sliding. It's hard enough to go into turn 1 or really any of the 3 corners on entry without really overcooking and sliding into the corner. And I guarantee you, if you do not get that car set on entry, if you're just a little bit hanging out that rear end, you're going to have a very unmanageable corner. Really, once you get the car sideways at this track, it's difficult enough when the weather's good to get all 4 tires back under you straight. When it's 115-degree track temperature, that is even more difficult than you can imagine until you actually get in this car and get yourself a little squirrely. And that, Justin, is when that tire wear comes into play. Not just that right front wearing down, but your right rear as well. And when that rear tire really starts to wear out, the rear end wants to slip out even more. It wants to have less control as the run goes on. And right there, it's that easy. The back end slides out. And at a track like this that's so small with such large banking for a track like this, once that rear end starts to go, you're just along for the ride.
Going along with Donnie Moore, and you can just see how much he has to move around that steering with the counter steer with some of the bumps as well here at this racetrack. It's going to be very tricky as a result this evening. By the way, earlier this evening, 2 thrilling races here for the respective classes. For the late models, it was contact into the final corner coming to the white flag between J.R. Shepherd and Matthew Thunhorst, where Shepherd was able to come away with the victory after leading 2 laps in that respective race, 40 laps on that board, 70 laps for the Pro Truck Series, with Austin Belke taking the checker flag with 46 lead laps in that respective event. In turn, it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers defend with that valuable track position, how some of the drivers charge through the field as a result here with the Grand National Series machines tonight.
And specifically with the Grand National machines, this isn't their first time on track in this practice session. In the cards it is, but not in the past 2 days. The Bootleg Racing League runs 6 races over the course of the past 2 days, Friday and Saturday. And last season there was a lot of dirt racing along with the previous season as well, or just tracks where, you know, you'd have Friday nights you're racing one place, Saturday nights you're racing another place, 3 and 3 cars apiece. Well, this season there are 5 asphalt series, if you will, throughout the 2 days. So you get even more practice on a track. Granted, it's a completely different vehicle, like a modified, like a truck. And now you come to the Grand National car. You just have to get your bearings under you. How is this race going to be different than the previous 4 that I've ran this weekend? Obviously, the modified is going to be a different animal, being an open wheel machine. The truck runs extremely different than these really old Arca Menard series Impalas. So you have that experience of running different cars throughout the weekend, and this is the final race of the weekend. This is the big show for the Bootleg Racing League. So what did you learn all weekend long to put all that together and find yourself in victory lane here at Concord. One last opportunity to with these Grand National cards if you weren't able to so far this weekend.
It's going to be a massive test, as some of the drivers will tell you, such as James Lowe, indeed, for tonight's action. It's going to be incredible to see which drivers come away with the task at hand tonight. And who do you feel this track and turn favors the most to be able to pass that test? And I'm not talking about just based on the practice times, but based on what you've seen experience-wise in this series.
Well, I think that we know whenever we go to a track, J.R. Shepherd is a threat because of his ability to save that right front tire. This is going to be a very difficult track to do that at because of the three corners and the heat. On board here with Matthew Thunhorst, we know that Matthew can be physical, he can be aggressive, and I'm not necessarily even saying with his fellow competitors, but with the car, while also having the ability to keep all four tires under him pointed straight. I've really liked how Matthew's been able to get the job done at a variety of short tracks. But I want to look specifically at last week's winner, Justin Morton, 5th on the board right now, but able to get himself off to a great start at Nashville to open up the season. And Justin hasn't had the greatest luck week in and week out, but we know that Justin is capable of winning any week that he shows up at the track. A great burst of momentum to get that first win of the season opener. You take a week off for 4th of July weekend. Now you come back as the outright points leader, the outright wins leader, and trying to defend a victory as well, winning last week. And Justin Morton is the guy that I typically say he turns to the right the most. It looks like he's driving that dirt street stock on Friday nights here at GSRC, just like he is in the Grand National cards. He loves to kick that thing sideways. Taking a peek here, I really am looking at Justin Morton here to really just have a good race, even if it's not a win. Grabbing a solid podium tonight to set himself up for a possible championship here in the Grand National Series.
The driver you're following along with, by the way, is Kenny Kibbe, who is making a one-off start this evening, Devin. As he said on social media, he loves Concord. He plans to go full-time again next season, but it's going to be interesting how he performs tonight in the Grand National Series. We know he's got speed. He's gotten top fives already this evening in the other series that take place on Saturday evenings.
4-time winner in the Grand National Series, as well as a champion as well. Love when we have Kenny Kibbe here in the number 14 machine. Glad to have him here. Like it, Concord brings the best out of people, because when I think of iRacing, I think of these tracks. Not, your typical oval, whether it be dirt, whether it be asphalt, whether it be concrete. This is one of those tracks where you hop into iRacing. It's free. And if you are not from Concord, North Carolina, you are going, what in the world is this track? It's a ton of fun to drive. I didn't know it existed until I got onto iRacing personally. So this is one of those that I think might have a cult following, even though it no longer is with us in the physical world. I think that has a very strong and a very fun cult following here in the world of iRacing. I love this track.
It's going to be an interesting race indeed, and this is a track that in turn is going to play major challenges indeed for these competitors, as talked about. Already in turn, 14 drivers have turned laps in session. Separation on the board is about 0.4 of a second at the moment. And one of the drivers who is looking to pick up pace is Austin Belke. We talked about him wanting some good long-run pace. He's been consistent on the long-run pace throughout the night. Expecting him to be fairly quick as well this evening.
And there is no qualifying in the Bootleg Racing League, any series. It's all based on last week's finish and the inversion. So you don't need to worry about going out in practice right now and clocking in qualifying laps. You want to set your race pace, go down on pit road, check your tire wear. You want to get the bearings of the track under you so you know how hard you can push it without burning up your tires and without losing the rear end. So the times that you see here in practice aren't necessarily saying this is how fast someone is. This is the pace they're looking to do the race at coming up, because we all know how important it is to have those tires with you, that right front with you, to make those gains late in a race. It's a 100-lap race, no tire changes. You got practice like that as well, because it is meaningful once you get to the grid.
And speaking of which, the drivers are now getting ready to make their way to the starting grid here at Concord Speedway, and what is expected to be a challenging race tonight. And It's going to be interesting how the inversion now plays out for tonight. Let's get the chance to take a look at your starting grid as drivers now make their way to the racetrack. It's Donnie Moore who will start on the pole tonight alongside Austin Belke. Valuable track position for the 24. J.R. Shepard will start in third, with Matthew Thunhorst in fourth. Justin Morden, your winner last week, starts in fifth with Lil Jewel. The Bossman in sixth. Brian Dean, Jason Menda, Bruce Pearson, Todd Liston round out your top 10 tonight, Devin.
Ryan Seneker in that white and blue 61 will be inside of row number 6 alongside former champion Kenny Kibbe in the black and orange number 14. Joe Segala lines up in the 13th position alongside Steven Spees, tagging the tail end of this field. That is your 14-car grid here at Concord Speedway. Ready to go a few times around this wacky little triangle.
And Brian Dean already saying hello to the back bumper of Justin Morden before they got rolling there for just a split second, but your quick keys to victory for tonight here at Concord.
I know that I preach patience every single week here in the Grand National Series, but tonight more than ever, because of the heat and the tire wear that you are going to absolutely pummel your right side tires with, don't get involved in fighting for real estate too hard. Sometimes you just gotta let someone go and prepare for the end of the race. Don't be going all guns out here in a blaze of glory. It might be gory in the first 20 laps if you do so.
Yeah, you don't want to end up smacking the wall and having a gory situation in terms of damage on your race car and damage on other race cars as a result of you bouncing off the wall. After all, there are tire marks along the edge of turn 1 exit that drivers in the other classes have bounced off of as well when they've been racing. But speaking of racing, it's time to get ready to go racing for tonight's Grand National Series event from Concord Speedway. Green flag is out, we're underway. And Donnie Moore already clear, heading off through turn 2. J.R. Shepard looking to take away second already, with Justin Morden diving his way to the bottom.
Yeah, this outside lane, I think especially when it's so hot outside, it's not going to be the preferred lane. You might be able to fight someone off, but you want to have that inside lane. Of course, though, once you come to this little dogleg, that second corner, the way that you fade up on exit becomes an issue, and a caution already out. It's Lowell Jewell with issues. Ooh, it looks like Menda might have got around as well.
And a pretty big pileup, in fact, after the bossman Lil Jewell indeed went around. But watch on the replay the checkup effect that will happen afterwards, because some of the drivers involved, Menda, Kibbe, and several more, all slid around, and got damage as a result of having to avoid this.
That's just getting in there a little bit too hot, and you don't really know it until it actually happens. And a great job, honestly, by a lot of drivers there not catching Menda as he took evasive action and couldn't keep that car straight. That could have been a lot bigger as everyone looked to avoid it. On board here with Kibbe. He's loose on exit the corner. Woo! The wheel man there working everything out. I can't believe Kenny Kibbe missed that.
I believe he did get some contact there with the left rear, but other than that, it could have been much worse. He does have some scrapes on the right side as well. Steven Spees had also came down to the pit lane and took service after he got significant suspension damage because he ended up having that damage caused on the right side of Kibbe's car. So him and Lowell Jewell are now among the drivers who have already had early trips to the pit lane just a couple laps in.
So the Bootleg Racing League is all short tracks all the time. And we visited Irwindale last season towards the end, a very small track, very exciting track that's similar to Indianapolis Raceway Park. But I think that when you come to Concord, it is a half-mile triangle. And because it's a triangle, you know, Pocono is about the size of a regular super speedway in NASCAR, although it doesn't necessarily feel like it. This track, even though it's a half mile, it feels so much shorter because of how condensed these straightaways are. And I think you saw that there in that incident, guys having to take evasive maneuvers while coming out of the corner. There's not a lot of room here, Justin, on those straightaways because of the 3 corners. So even though it's a half mile, I'd go as far to say that it feels more like a 3rd mile because of the size.
Yeah, especially with how quickly these corners can come out and bite you, as we've already seen. as the green flag waves. A stack up on the start as Shepard gets the better launch, in fact, on the high side. Can he utilize that for the better pull? The answer is no. Preferred line still Donnie Moore.
And the only time where the outside becomes preferred is if you can handle it in that second quarter. You can almost pinch the guy on the inside of you, but as you can see there in turn 3, the inside is more than dominant. Turn 1, you can kind of fight back. Donnie Moore fades up a smidge, but the 98 didn't touch him. That just got in there a little bit too hot. Donnie Moore keeps it alive, though. He's going to lose at least 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 positions.
That's Dunhorst, who's trying to clear on by on the inside still. Donnie Moore trying to apply the squeeze. Loses the spot now as Austin Belke tries to jump to the hole to take away 4th position as a result. But it's J.R. Shepard, who is now your leader with 91 to go, coming up to 90 to go, already on lap 10 of this race.
And he sure had a mirror full of last week's winner, Justin Morton, and your points leader. You can see already 2 very aggressively different lines. Thick setup here in the Bootleg Racing League, 100 laps, no tire changes. The way that these guys race will affect how they run later on in this event. You're going to see tire wear out in different ways. You're going to see these drivers use different lines as the race goes on that they're more comfortable with. Driving preference really becomes a major factor when you have a fixed setup on tires that are going to become extremely worn out.
New fastest lap, by the way, you see Justin Morton putting himself into the 16.705 range, keeping this pressure up on J.R. Shepard, who is known for saving his equipment for the long runs here at this racetrack. Things getting spread out a little bit. Kenny Kibbe, does that incident just take the wall? It should be worth noting on the outside coming into turn 3. Just lost some ground in 7th position as well as the pressure stays on top of the back end of Shepard from Morton.
And if you're Justin Morton, you just have to stay there. You don't want to outrun him in the way that's going to burn up your tires while you're not in front of him. But you can see just how close they are to that wall when they're coming off a 3 onto that front straightaway. Everyone's still pushing it to a specific limit. And if you're Justin Morton, don't push it too far where you're in second, not passing him, not setting the pace, and you're wearing out more tire than J.R. Shepard. But if you're right up on his bumper, maybe you're wearing out equal tire. Just having that extra presence there is going to keep the 98 looking in his rearview mirror. Maybe you make a mistake once these tires really heat up on these long runs.
Don't forget, if these drivers battle too far or too long or anything along those lines, Thunderhorse is there to take advantage as well, potentially in that 3rd spot already, and has already joined this threesome who continues to pull away now by half a second from the rest of the pack.
And the rest of the pack begins with Donnie Moore. That will be someone to watch over the course of this race if we continue to have this green flag run, because you saw him going into 2 in the lead, slid those tires. It looks minuscule at most, but I guarantee you from just that slide, it lit up the temperatures on all 4 of those tires. And when you're under a green flag run like this, you can't cool them back down. His tires are running warmer than anybody else. That means it's going to wear more than anyone else. It's going to be looser than anyone else. Will he be able to calm those tires back down and save up enough stuff to keep himself inside of this top 5, or is he going to sink like a rock soon?
That's a major question indeed. We've seen Thunhorst have some good pace. There was that contact earlier that was door to door, coming to the white flag in late model competition for this series earlier on this evening. That may be a factor later on this race. But it's looking like, for the most part, everyone getting into a rhythm across this pack and trying to get themselves dialed on in, as talked about, because it can be so difficult to get yourself even side by side with how short the straightaways are here.
And rhythm is so important, Justin, and part of what you just said there, you have so little time to prepare for that next corner because of how short these straightaways are. Along with that, these corners are so different from one another. They're all a little bit different characters. We have a caution flag out on the track, so give a couple drivers a chance to cool down their tires.
And that's Spees at the back of the field, who ended up looping it around in turn 3. And a tough break for Spees, who had already used a faster pair, not looking comfortable tonight.
got a handful of positions back. You see him here coming through turn number 2, and you can see he's got a number of drivers behind him, did a great job recovering. Yeah, he got in there a little bit too hot, and like I said earlier, if you do not set your car into the corner, you will slide the entire way, and once those rear tires come out from under you, you're just along for the ride, while we're going to ride along with Steven Spees.
You could see that thing was going around the second he entered turn 3. And he has already pulled his car out of the race, so Steven Spees will be our first DNF of the evening. The other driver who pit after the first caution of the race, Lowell Jewell, is still in 13th position. He's DNF'd in both the earlier races this evening. But now, it's going to be really interesting how drivers like Thunhorse take advantage of this, because they'll be lined up at the bottom, and we've seen how tough that top line can be to be able to stick side by side with, as we've talked about throughout the evening.
And I will be keeping an eye on the Michigander, Kenny Kibbe. We know he loves this track. Now he's going to restart on the inside lane. Also, he's passed more cars than anyone else. He's up 5 here to start off this race, a quarter of the way through. He'll start on the inside lane, maybe pick up a spot or two depending on how that lane blasts off. But if you're Kenny Kibbe, you gotta like the position that you're in. You're going to be restarting behind Austin Belke, and then Thunhorse, and then Shepard up front. So there's a chance here that Kibbe can make up a couple of spots and maybe be able to tag onto the back of that 3-car train that we had earlier on.
Gonna make things very interesting as they get ready for the restart this time to reset your field. It is Shepard and Morton who are 1 and 2. Thunhorse and Moore 3 and 4. Belke and Dean 5 and 6. Kibbe and Liston 7 and 8. Pearson and Menda 9th and 10th respectively. Rest of drivers on track: Joe Scallon 11th, Ryan Seneca, Lowell Jewell are 11th through 13th respectively. The iRacing pace car is already off into the pit lane. Will Shepard go? He goes now. Green flag is out. Off and away we go, and a great launch by Shepard. Morton able to get clear already to hold on to second.
Top 3 ready to just line right back up and go back to the hunt. You can see all 3 of them really having a slightly different entry into one as they kind of fan out behind them. A little bit of issues here for Donnie Moore. Can't seem to get the 24 of Austin Belke off that left rear quarter panel. Belke's still there looking for P4.
See that there now as Belke was able to get the better run in through the dog leg through turn 2. And now you see on board, this is from Belke. You can see how dialed in and focused he is and how much wheel he's having to put in to make sure he doesn't come up into Donnie Moore's door.
Oh, he almost did that time. That was a little close. Moore up a little bit higher than I think he wanted to, but still door to door. Belke, I think he always wears our favorite little Chevy shirt whenever he's on our camera shot. Always glad to have him along with us and allowing us to see his POV, what he looks like inside of his personal cockpit. Now able to slide up a little bit, wasn't able to get clear, and Donnie Moore makes contact down the front straight.
Door to door that time, and it opens up the opportunity for Kenny Kibbe to dive through the door as well. He's now side by side with Moore as Moore nearly scrapes them all, and Moore nearly gets loose coming through turn 3.
Donnie Moore's been used up by the track, he's being used up by the cars, and later on in the race he'll probably get used up by his own tires as well. The 26 just wants things to calm down as he gets pushed outside of the top 5. Shepard, Morton, Thunhorse running away again, but now Belke and Kibbe look to put a little bit of speed on here, try to catch back up to that top 3, 33 laps down.
Yeah, that's going to be the true test now for Belke. Can he find a way to close up that big gap as well? Kenny Kibbe looking to do the same now. We see from his vantage point how dialed in and laser focused he is. I don't think I've seen him blink yet in the past 15 seconds.
Well, I love fixating on his wheel here in the screen because the sim wheel shows you one thing, but until you actually see someone in their actual real life perspective shaking that wheel, typically we see guys like Kenny Kibbe so smooth on the wheel. Look, going through that trial where he was shaking the wheel left and right. Even on corner exit here in 3, he'll kind of have it wiggle a little bit there. That just goes to show you exactly how tough this track is to drive, not just with the heat, but just in general. It's so hard to be smooth here, to the point where even one of our smoother drivers is shaking the wheel left and right, in part for feedback, in part just trying to keep that car straight as he reels in the bumper of the 24.
He scraped the wall a little bit down the front straightaway, entering the corner with the right rear fender. Not affecting him too much, as he has to put a lot of wheel into to make sure he holds on to it. My goodness.
Boy, this track is a wheelman's track today, guys. Seen a couple of great moves out of Kenny Kibbe, avoiding incidents, and now just trying to keep that 14 machine pointed in the right direction. And now Donnie Moore was also attacked from Brian Dean. Dean was using that outside lane. I'm interested to see if that outside groove does start to form up a little bit. I'm just concerned that it won't be the primary lane just because of how hot it is outside and how much speed you'll be carrying. I'm just not sure if the outside will let you carry that speed without your car just sliding out of control.
Interestingly enough, the track temperature has dipped down by 3 degrees Fahrenheit since the drop of the green flag and practice to 112. So it did go down a little bit. Getting a little bit dicey though as Kibbe gets himself the run into turn 3. He goes for the move on Austin Belke and give Kenny Kibbe 4th position.
Boy, that was a borderline slide job. This track did used to be dirt at one time. Granted, it was a very long time ago, and he about did a dirt track slide job there. He was pretty sure he was going to be clear off that corner, but now moved the 14 car up to P4. He still has quite a gap, though, to Matthew Thunhorse. He's nearly 2 seconds behind this trio out front.
And they're slowly but surely growing that gap lap by lap. They're turning lap times right now in the 17 1s and 2s, but last time by, Kibbe did turn a 17 flat. So keep that in mind if it becomes that opportunity. In fact, Kibbe running near identical laps this past time around to these three who continue to set the tempo, the rest of the field running the 17 3s and 4s.
These guys just look like the three amigos, just kind of bouncing along, just kind of driving all in a straight line together, real nice and tight, just hanging out. But I tell you right now, I can't do what Justin Morton, and to an extent as well, Matthew Thunhorse, I can't do what they're doing. It is so difficult to understand the difficulty of how close the 9 is on the 98 bumper on corner entry, because there's going to be different braking points, especially this late in the race, that you don't want to run into the guy in front of you. Not only does it take out the leader potentially, but it also damages your car. But it's so difficult to go into corner entry almost blind because all you have is a rear bumper full of the guy in front of you. What Thunderhorse is doing right now, breathing down the neck of Justin Morton, that's not easy to do at a track this small, because it really makes it more difficult to find your points to brake and to turn the car. But somehow these guys have done it for just about 40 laps in this race so far. Nose to tail, nose to tail.
Absolutely tricky to do, as well as keep your focus dialed in to make sure you do not make those slip-ups or make those mistakes indeed. Already approaching halfway, Kenny Kibbe was within a few tenths gained before he started losing time the past couple laps. He's now fallen back to around a second and a half back or so after getting it within 1.2 seconds just a few laps ago.
And this is the point where if you're Kibbe, halfway this time by, you have to make a decision here, I think. Do you hold back and save your tires, or do you try to run down this top 3 and hope that you can hook onto the rear bumper at Thunhorse and stick it out with them? You've ran a lot of green flag laps. You know what your pace is compared to them. Since he took the 4th position, he's gained 0.2 of a second in total. At that point, I think you need to decide, okay, am I saving tires here? I'm going to try to blitz them later, or do I use those tires that I have now and get to them now? Of course, that's assuming you don't get a caution, and assuming that that right rear doesn't just want to just fly towards the wall, because boy, these cars are getting wicked loose.
Looking like the answer was the right rear wanted to do a bit of a tap dance the last time by. That's where he lost all the time he had picked up over the course of 3 laps, and that's the dangerous part, is trying not to overburn these tires. By the way, lap traffic is approaching. Ryan Seneker will be the first driver within range of these leaders if it stays green. That 61 is running 17.8, 0.6 a lap off.
And meanwhile, while these three continue to run in order, I don't think anyone really wants to make a move yet. There's no need to. There's plenty of racing left to go. There's going to be some moving and shaking around P8. That's the invert spot. If you finish in 8th, you will start on the provisional pole for next week. Jason Mender right now in 8th. Brian Dean almost a second in front of him, but he's still right on the rear bumper of Donnie Moore. Dean and Moore have been nose to tail for about probably this entire green flag run so far, but Todd Liston a half second behind Menda for that inversion spot. So as this race continues on, whoever can save the most tire there might give themselves a provisional pole for next week.
And of course, a very pivotal race in North Wilkesboro as well.
Yeah, you're going to want that track position in North
Traffic now
Wilkesboro.
moves out of the way. Yes, indeed. Pardon me.
So by one lap car there, around Ryan Seneker, Lowell Jewell will be the next car, who is about 6.
Trouble,
maybe
Todd
5 seconds.
Liston. He's hit the pit barrels coming into the pit entry. No caution, we stay green.
He's off the track surface at least, so no caution flag there. We'll take a look back on our GSRC replay machine. That silver and yellow number 87 does what is so easy to do at this track. Get on the gas a little bit too early, and that rear end whips around on these really old tires. Watch it one more time, coming off of 1, a little bit shaky. I don't know if you really even got that car under control off of turn 1. Slow-mo. Yeah, that's not a fun hit. I'm surprised that he was actually able to get off the water jugs. Sometimes you get stuck up there.
Oh, and the caution is now out too. That's going to potentially help him out. Brian Dean is the yellow flag in the 23, who was in 7th position before turn 3. Seen him snap around to the outside fence.
Dean and Moore have been going at it for a number of laps, but you see here Moore started to get away from him. Mendes behind him. Watch this wheel here. Oh man, he knows that he is doomed. He tries everything that he can to correct that, and he ends up overcorrecting, which there's really nothing else you can do here. You saw once he turned the car right and it would still slide to the left, you're going, oh no, I've read this chapter before and it does not end well.
Yeah, it's so tricky to be able to hold on to the car in that situation. There's so many opportunities to get loose like that, and now that's going to put us under yellow with under 40 to go. Ryan Seneker is the one, though, who will get the lucky dog, so that brings us to 11 cars on the lead lap. Dean is still in the pit lane after the tow, down a couple laps as a result of his incident at the minimum. And Todd Liston is coming down to the pit lane now once more. And keep in mind, for Todd Liston, he was either go to the pit lane and risk losing a lap, which he did in that circumstance, or risk bringing out a caution flag by trying to back up into the racetrack. So it's understandable why Liston had that situation. He's taken a faster pair, by the way, this caution.
Yeah, there was no good choice there for Liston, because I believe that we still are having some iRacing cautions flag thrown. So if you stop on the track, boom, caution. So if you would have backed up just a little bit too much, wherever that track boundary is that iRacing has set forth, you get a caution for someone stopping on the track, and then everyone's like, ah, well, dang. And unfortunately for Liston, the caution comes out maybe a little bit too late, because Ryan Seneker was in front of him. Both drivers were one lap down, but Seneker gets the wave around here because he was the first car one lap down. So 61 back on the lead lap, and Liston will sit back hoping for another caution here soon.
Do you think the outside line may come into play now with the track rubbered up a little bit on this upcoming restart, you think?
That's the thing. There's a little bit of rubber. A couple of guys have tried to get up there, and with the new iRacing dynamics, it does actually place rubber, if you will, down on that higher group. The issue is that the track temperature is still 109 degrees. I just don't know carrying that much momentum on banks 10 degrees plus if you're going to be able to keep the car steady enough to really utilize the speed and momentum that is up there. If it was a little bit cooler, I think you'd be able to do it with these worn out tires as well, but I'm just not sure with how hot it is that you can keep that car pointed straight with all that speed.
Let's see if that rings true on this restart. 34 to go. Shepard, another great launch. And again, another good pull off into turn one. The top four all go single file, make that the top five. Jason Menda with a good launch has already jumped up to the top six.
Pensacola, Florida man. 25-year fire veteran looking to take away that sixth position and hunt down Austin Belke. Still door to door. An eventful day for Donnie Moore so far.
Donnie Moore, you see him in the backdrop trying to hold on to the high line. Couldn't do so in turn three, so they're all single file for that group. Now it's Joe Sagawa in the inversion spot. The leaders now having a 5-car breakaway from the rest of the pack. Kibbe now applying the pressure to the back end of Thunhorst in this grouping.
And remember when Kibbe was about 2 seconds behind this trio back when we were under green and he had to make that decision. Do I try to blitz them? Do I try to save tires in case we do have that caution come out? And if he did save tires, he's going to be the benefactor here and have the ability to not just keep up with these guys, but if Thunhorst makes a mistake, I'm just going to peek to the inside, take away one spot. Maybe later in the race, all right, I can drive in a little bit harder than someone else. There's another spot there. So if Kibbe was able to save some tire, even though he had to come through the field, that caution there allowing him to now just be right up on that rear bumper. You see how much time he's able to make up through the center of the corner there. We'll see what he's able to utilize here and pick off a few more positions under 30 laps to go in this race.
Again, Kibbe laser focused. You can see the viewpoints is now. He tries to utilize a bit of the higher groove. May have missed the bottom there, in fact, to lose some time. That's been one of his trouble spots. Has been that run up to turn three. I believe he actually scraped the wall to cause him to miss that line as he gets loose in turn two.
Boy, that thing just looks like a monster. You see how far he had to turn that wheel to the right. That dog leg is an absolute demon for these drivers to attempt to tame. Watch the steering wheel one more time. Let's see what he does here. Much smoother that time through turn number two, but you can still see all that gap between him and Thunhorst. A lot of space there as he fights it off at three as well. I think he's losing a little bit of time here, Justin, to your top three.
He's already lost himself about 4/10 or so to Thunhorst. He scrapes the wall again. This time not getting as loose and able to hold on to the bottom through turn three, but still lost him half a tenth, having to get through the corner. Coming up to 24 to go, this time by the stripe, Justin Morton. Now this time uses the high line. That time able to defend Thunhorst.
I can't tell if that was intentional or not. Floats up on the exit of one, and Thunhorst reels him all the way back in. And Shepard loves seeing this because he's starting to poke away. The 9 really drove it in hard there on entry, but loses all that speed on corner exit. The 98 can continue to grow this gap. J.R. Shepard will be in a really good place here, coming to 15 to go. He'll probably have a pretty substantial lead. Has to keep on chugging along, though. The 9 hasn't went away yet.
Keep in mind, last time by, they matched lap times. This time by, Morton was a little bit quicker on the stopwatch, but is still 3/10 back.
Austin Belke really hasn't left this top four either. He's a little bit behind Kenny Kibbe, but the top 5 is really checked out from the rest of the field. If anything wacky happens, the 24 will be there to pounce or to end up getting stuck in the mix as well.
Yeah, this is going to get intriguing as Thunhorst gets a little loose coming off of turn 3. Able to hold on to his number 8 machine coming off that corner.
The entire top 4 beginning to spread out. They aren't nose to tail like we saw earlier on. Now we're beginning to see the creativity kick in. Fixed setup, 100 laps on one set of tires. How did you maintain your tires at first? Now what lines do you have to take to maximize what you have left? And now everyone really having a different corner entry, a different way to get off the corner that best suits their driving preference. And this is where you see the cream rise to the top. Who was able to save the most and who has the best feel of their car to make those moves.
Coming up to 17 to go, and curious on that, it looks like Thunhorse trying to set up a move on Morden. Morden not giving up easily, though. Morden clips the apron, though. Thunhorse forced to check up. Shepard gains some time as Thunhorse goes for the move. Thunhorse for second, drips it down into the corner, loops it around in front of the field as the caution comes out.
What a shame for Matthew Thunhorse. Really sent it in there into turn number 3. Thunhorse and Morden are teammates. They chat a lot during the race. He saw his opening and just went too hard. Just really went into the corner with too much aggression. Wanted to make that move and start pursuing J.R. Shepard, but looked a little bit too far too soon. On board here with Austin Belke. Watches how this happens here. They split the middle. He goes, don't come down. Whew, that's a tight one.
Within a couple of inches or so from avoiding significant contact there in that situation. As now, that is going to make it interesting because the driver who jumped up to second and all that you seen was Kenny Kibbe. He's up 10 positions now in this race. Can he make it a plus 11 and get one more spot is the big question.
And what a tale of two different cars here. You had the 98 started for the most part up front, started inside the top 5. Didn't have to make a lot of moves to get up front. But we know that that 98 machine does better than anyone else saving that right front. When you're racing at a short track like this, or even an intermediate, the right front is what slows the car down. So that's why it wears so much. If you can slow it down before you get to the corner, that saves up your tire wear a little bit. And the 98 of J.R. Shepard does that so well. He has set the tempo of the race. Meanwhile, though, Kenny Kibbe has had to come from the back, the very tail end of the field, to get his way up to second position here. He used tire going through drivers, but maybe he saved a little bit hanging out behind the 4, back when there was a massive gap between him and the top 3. Was he able to save enough, though, to make a move on J.R. Shepard, make it stick, but most importantly here, we'll go green with about 10 laps to go. Can he keep up with the 98 and not spin those rear tires? That will be the vital part if 14 can win this race or not.
Also very critical indeed coming up. It'll be 11 to go when the green flag flies. Shepard, Kibbe, Morden, Belke, Menda, the top 5. But more Pearson, Sagawa rounding out the inversion spots. The boss man, Lowell Jewell, just outside those positions right now is with Ryan Seneker in row 5. And already, Morden over the back bumper of Shepard. He's going early this time. Green flag is out. Massive launch for Shepard. Morden trying to take advantage to rip away second, but Kibbe able to get the squeeze now into turn 2.
Able to hook onto that left rear quarter panel, but that momentum off of 2 allows Kibbe to make a little bit of a gap, take away P2 for himself. Sets his sights on the 98, but already more than a half-second lead for J.R. Shepard.
Can Kibbe chip away at it in the span of 9.5 laps, though? That's going to come by quickly here with these lap times in the 17-second bracket. It stays at half a second at the stripe.
Kenny Kibbe now under attack from Justin Morden. That number 9 machine filling up the mirror of Kenny Kibbe. Has to lay back a little bit there, and you just wait and see. Can Kibbs catch up to the 98? Shepard is setting a phenomenal pace right now, and it all starts with the tempo that he set all race long.
He's now pulled away by about a tenth or so over the past couple laps. Morden wanting some valuable points, though. Goes for the tighter rigs in turn 1. As the caution flag waves, it's at the back of the field, and it involved the inversion spots potentially. Joe Sagawa from 10th position goes around, and now we're under caution. It was Todd Liston who got him.
Taking a look back on our GSRC replay machine, looking for that black number 81 and also the silver number 87 right in the middle of your screen. A little bit to your right, I guess. Going into turn number 1, the 87 digs in deep and runs right into the rear quarter panel, the 81. really aggressive move there into turn number 1 and definitely does not pay off. Now, I will give one guarantee. This will not look like the truck race did last night for NASCAR. I'll guarantee you that, because there are no green-white checkers. As Ryan Seneker just sees a cloud of dust and splits the middle. All right. Got through there nice and clean. But now there's just one more shot. We're going to have, I think, enough laps to go green. Maybe for 2 laps. Maybe for 3. Maybe just 1. No green-white checkers. One last opportunity to gain a spot where you can. Kibbe will again start on the outside of row 1, but goodness gracious, Justin. J.R. Shepherd took off like a bottle rocket on that last restart. He knows how to mix it up and keep everyone on their toes. He sure won that battle last restart.
Yeah, the past couple restarts prior to that one, he had been going right around where those yellow lines are in turn 3. He ended up going a full car length and a half before them to be able to get that massive launch. How do you try and mix it up now if you're Shepherd? Do you go early again, or do you try and go and stack the box, or somewhere in between?
I think you might just go in between. I think that in part the strategy of going early is it disallows that outside lane to really get his tires all set up underneath him. Because if you're going on the exit of 3, the guy in the outside lane still has to complete his corner while going up the gearbox and getting up to speed. The guy on the inside gets straight pretty quickly at a low speed and at a lower banking. So if you go early, the guy on the outside doesn't only have to worry about where the leader is restarting, he also has to worry about not spinning the tires and looping it around on his own because you're still in the banking of the corner transitioning to the straightaway. So I think that's in part why he went early. He won't go in the same spot, I don't think, but I still think they'll probably go before he gets that second line.
And here we go. 1 lap to determine your winner. Shepherd, Kibbe, Morton, Belke, your top 4 cars. Can Kibbe or Morton do anything to take away this lead from Shepherd in the span of 3 corners? Shepherd already going a little bit higher up on the banking. Way early for the launch. Green flag is out. Final lap is underway for the green and white.
And Kibbe was able to keep up on that rear bumper, Justin. He'll have 2 opportunities here.
1 doesn't work out. 2, is he close enough? Through turn 3, not close enough. Shepherd wins it at Concord.
And they wreck behind him. Jason Menda goes around in turn 3. He will not finish the race. And that even mixed up your provisional pole for next week. The boss man, Lowell Jewell, brings it across in 8th. And how about Matthew Thunhorse? Looped it around in 2nd place on his own. Fought back for a top 5.
It's J.R. Shepherd, though, who gets the chance to celebrate and do his thing to be able to burn it down through turn 1 and celebrate down the front straightaway. On that note, post-race coverage coming up in just a few moments. You're watching the Global SimRacing Channel from the virtual Concord Speedway. Welcome back to GSRC's coverage of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series presented by Gargamel's Kitchen here at the virtual Concord Speedway. And what was an eventful one, and in the end, it was J.R. Shepard who held on to take the checker flag in a one-lap shootout by just under 0.2 of a second. Kenny Kibbe goes from 12th to 2nd in a one-off for today's action, with Justin Morden, your points leader entering today after starting the season with a victory, starts off race 2 with a 3rd place finish. Austin Belke, Matthew Thunhorst round out the top 5, Bruce Pearson, Ryan Seneker, and the boss man Lowell Jewell round out your inversion spots, with Joe Sagawa and Donnie Moore rounding out the top 10 this evening, Devin.
Todd Liston, the last car on the lead lap in 11th, followed by Jason Menda, Brian Dean, and Steven Spees, your 14-car field here at Concord.
In the end, it is J.R. Shepard who takes another checkered flag, his 46th at BRL's Grand National Series competition. He now joins us from Victory Lane, and J.R. Shepard, first things first. Pretty tricky holding off a big train of cars, 4 of you in total, up to 5 with Austin Belke at times tonight. How was it trying to hold off all those drivers?
Yeah, just got really lucky on track position, being able to start up front and get the lead pretty early at a track like this where you got to save the rear tires is pretty big. So, yeah, once we got that lead, I wasn't concerned with turning lap time or trying to pull away. I knew the guys behind me were gonna be trying to pass, and I was more worried about saving the tires. So, yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking to do that when they're so close to you, but you got to do it if you want to have a chance at the end.
How difficult was it to learn this track with this car? Because this is, of course, a track that's been on the service for a long time, but it's one that is not as frequently used, so to speak, when it comes to this car in recent years.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I know early on the service, I ran a lot of races here, and was never one of my favorite tracks just based on the way guys would race you. But yeah, we haven't been here in a long time. It's probably been 2 years since I've raced on this track, so getting reacquainted with it was not easy. It's a unique track, and the biggest obstacle is the dog leg on the backstretch. You think that would be one of the easier spots, but you can't go full throttle through there. You're just going to lose it. So it's pretty tricky, and yeah, we had to get used to it all over again.
Now, the next race goes to North Wilkesboro Speedway for another edition of the Moonshine Challenge. Your thoughts on North Wilkesboro for this season?
Yeah, I typically like that track. It's another track similar to this as far as the track texture. It's real gritty, so tires are going to be important again. But traditionally, you kind of have 2 grooves there, especially through turns 3 and 4. So we'll have to see how it works out. You know, that initial start and where you are in line and which line goes first is going to be a big deal with that. But hopefully we can get in the right spot and have a good run.
Anyone you want to thank for your run tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Just the Bootleg Racing League for allowing us to do this each weekend, and my team, Different Path Motorsports, and want to give a big shout out to Kenny Kibbe. He started 12th, making his return tonight, and able to come back up into 2nd place there. So if he had some track position early, it might have been a different story. And also congratulations to Justin for the podium there.
Congratulations to yourself as well on the victory. J.R. Shepard coming away with the victory tonight, led a majority of the laps, but it was Kenny Kibbe who was able to charge his way through the pack and get himself up to 2nd. His reward, an interview with Devin Henry.
Oh, it's so great. I love those, right, Kenny? No, I'm just kidding. But you did get a shout out from J.R. Shepard. You are the hard charger tonight from 12th to 2nd, and we knew beforehand you love this track. It's a fun triangle. It's well banked. It's probably one of my favorite, oh, this is a real-life racetrack kind of track on iRacing when you first pop on it. Tell me, man, why do you love this track so much?
Yeah, I mean, a few reasons. I mean, I like the tracks that are kind of oddballs, and this one kind of epitomizes that. And, it's just so different from every other short track out there. And I've had good success here through different leagues, so that plays into it a little bit. And the fact that BRL only goes here once a year in the calendar year, I couldn't resist. I had to run it. It was my only chance. So, yeah, I really like this track. It's got a lot of character, and you're just so on the edge here. it makes it a challenge, but it's a fun challenge.
And I know you love this track. I don't know if it loves you back or not, because you had to be an absolute wheel man today. You're avoiding wrecks by inches. You're having to work that wheel really hard to keep it straight. Tell me, what was the most difficult part of this race for you? Not just coming from the back, but 110-degree track temperature isn't very fun at any track.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, coming from the back, at any track is a challenge. 100 laps, it seems like a long time, but it really isn't. When you have a lot of green flag laps. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of hard to pass here. You really had to make your runs, but then you got to manage the tires like you do at every track with these cars. So you had that, and yeah, a couple of wrecks that we were sort of in, but got through them clean enough anyway. It was a challenge. And you get further up the field and the passes get harder to make because you're getting faster drivers to compete against. And then my tires are also worse as the race goes on. So yeah, it kind of compounded there. I really didn't have much left at the end and got a few lucky breaks to get a couple spots. And boy, I gave it all I had.
Well, it was great to have you back tonight, Kenny, and thank you for allowing us to watch your camera. It was a blast to watch you really fight that car and fight the track all night long. But who do you have to thank for coming on back here and getting right back up on the podium at P2?
Yeah, just everybody at the Bootleg Racing League. Obviously, the racing has not changed a bit since I last run. Everybody's same cool group it's always been. And you guys, again, for your continuous broadcasts. I keep up on them even when I'm not racing. Yeah, I look forward to being back next season. I plan to run the season finale so I can get ready for season 3 of the year. And yeah, I'm itching to get back.
Well, we look forward to, Kenny. Glad to have you here, and congrats on the P2 finish.
Thank you.
Kenny Kibbe brings it home at second place here at Concord. And, of course, still another great finish here for Justin Morden, coming off the win last week and now bringing home a third-place finish here at Concord.
Yes, indeed. Justin Morden, a strong performance tonight, holding on to the front positions much of the evening. Justin, how are you feeling about your run?
Yeah, I'm feeling I left maybe a little something on the table. Killed my tires, specifically the right rear, and I let Kenny get by, and yeah, I feel like I probably could have held on to second there. Just kind of killed my stuff.
It was talked about by J.R. Shepard, the difficulty of saving the rear tires here at this racetrack. How was that balance for you tonight to try and make sure that you didn't get too far on the tires? You mentioned you felt like you burned up your stuff a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely burned it up. I thought I was doing a pretty decent job saving, but around lap 50, I think I just started noticing the car was slowly kicking out on exit. Yeah, I talked to Matt, Kenny, and a few guys after the race, and I was about 3% lower on my right rear compared to them, so I was obviously killing something.
Interesting indeed. Now, it's looking strong so far to start off the season. A first at Nashville, a third tonight. A good start for your championship hopes, Justin, as well.
Yeah, it's a great start. I don't think I've ever led a BRL asphalt championship, so yeah, definitely a great start. Hopefully it carry through the rest of the year. Hopefully pick up some more wins too.
Anyone you want to thank for your run tonight?
Yeah, I like to thank the league BRL. It's a great group of guys. Love racing with them. TDR, great team. Love being with a group of guys. Pixel Dust for great paint. Gargamel's Kitchen for jumping in, sponsoring the league for this year, and I thank you, Lowell, for running the great league, and you guys for doing the good, great broadcast.
Thank you very much for the time, Justin.
Thank you.
Justin Morden coming away with the third place run. I'd like to thank him, Kenny Kibbe, and J.R. Shepard for taking the time to speak with us for post-race coverage. Now, Devin, your final thoughts on this one, because we had Kibbe charge his way to the field, but we also had that whole train of race leaders control the tempo much the way.
Yeah, and that was the key, was that tempo set by J.R. Shepard, and eventually it came to demise all the drivers behind him. They just couldn't seem to have that extra little bit of tire, that extra little bit of machine left in there to go and hunt him at the very end. a couple of cautions at the end there that I don't think any of the leaders were really hoping for since they were already condensed so much. But like Kenny said, an oddball track here. It's just one of those race tracks that you love to see. And I haven't really seen a true competitive race, maybe in hosted, which I wouldn't necessarily call competitive at that point in time at a track like this. But it was fun to watch these guys really attack the track here at Concord. And like you said, for next week at North Wilkesboro, this inversion means a lot because of the track position that you're going to want at North Wilkesboro, really starting this season at 3 very unique racetracks in BRL.
It's going to be exciting to say the very least. And on that note, we'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's exciting action for the virtual Concord Speedway. We'd also like to thank the Bootleg Racing League as well as its title sponsor, Gargamel's Kitchen, for organizing being a part of this exciting series here on iRacing. We'd also like to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for a broadcast listed on screen. With additional thanks to Jude Lawan, who provides your wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today in Devin and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale at gsrc.storyview.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss a moment on the Global SimRacing Channel. As talked about with our competitors, North Wilkesboro is up next, and it's race 5 of the Moonshine Challenge. Be sure to tune in. Coverage starts at approximately 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Race Green Flag is scheduled for 9 p.m.-ish. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down in your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.